Section 10.5 is on sine and cosine functions. Now sine is pronounced just like that, sine, but they write it as S-I-N. It is not sin, it's sine. The sine of an angle, or cosine, C-O-S, of an angle. It's not pronounced sin and cos. It's sine and cosine. So when you talk about sine and cosine, just like tangent of an angle was the opposite leg over the adjacent leg. The sine of an angle is opposite leg over hypotenuse. And the cosine is the adjacent leg over the hypotenuse. Okay? So we need to remember these ratios. Sine, cosine, and tangent. There is an acronym that helps us remember these ratios. It's called SO, CA, TOA. SOHCAHTOA. So is the same as sine, opposite, and hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. TOA is tangent is opposite over adjacent. So it says to find the sine of A. The sine of A, this is A, so this is your opposite, this is your hypotenuse. It's 3 over 5. The cosine of A is the adjacent leg, which is the leg next to it, over the hypotenuse. So therefore, the sine is 3/5, the cosine is 4/5. Find the sine of an angle. All right, angle A. So we have the sine of A, here's A. The sine of A, this would be your opposite, this would be your hypotenuse, and this is the adjacent leg. So the sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine of A is the adjacent leg over the hypotenuse. So it really makes, you really have to make sure that you know how to label each side according to the angle you're talking about. If I wanted to find the sine of A of this one, it's just oriented a little bit differently. This is still the opposite up here because it's opposite side. This is still the hypotenuse, so this must be the adjacent leg. So the sine is opposite over hypotenuse. The cosine of A is the adjacent leg, 7 over the hypotenuse. So once you have them labeled and you know the ratios, you should be able to just fill them in. In this one, we have the sine of an A. A is here. It's 8 over 10. The cosine of A is 6 over 8. It says write your answer as a fraction and as a decimal rounded to 4 decimal places. So you're actually finding the sine of A. The sine of A is, here's A, opposite is here, and the hypotenuse is here. So we have 5 over 12, and then you could approximate that on your calculator. The cosine of A is adjacent leg 12, I'm sorry, I put 12, it should have been 13, and then this one should have been 12 over 13. I don't know where I got the 12 from, I should have watched that more carefully. But the hypotenuse is always the longest side, so you can always pay attention to that. All right, you can try these and see if you can get them right. I'm going to quickly do them here. After you're done, you can start the video back up. So here we have the sine of A equals 40 over 41. The cosine of A is 9 over 41. The sine of A is the square root of 2 over 2. The cosine of A is the square root of 2 over 2 because they're the same. The sine of A is the square root of 39 over 8. The cosine of A is 5 over 8. Now we're going to approximate what they are. Again, you need to make sure your calculator is in degree mode. So when you plug in the sine of 74, you can plug it in as sine, S-I-N, of 74 is approximately 4 decimal places, so 0.9613. Cosine of 74, is 0.2756. So then they just ask you to do that. Now they give you what the sine is, or excuse me, if I know what the angle is, so the sine of 32, but I want to find the opposite leg, I'm going to use the sine function to find the opposite leg because I know the hypotenuse. Now, just like solving the tangent one, you would multiply both sides by 10. So A is equal to 10 times the sine of 32. And then you would plug that in your calculator. 5.3. Now, if I wanted to find B, I probably would use then the cosine button or function, the cosine of 32, because that involves B over 10. And so B is 10 times the cosine of 32. And then that would approximate what that is. So 10 times the cosine of 32 is 8.5. Yep. And that's how you do those. Here are the three ratios.